For those of you who said, chat, has he responded to Dylan Burns' post, by the way, before getting clapped? If you think that I would entertain such a psychotic thing ever in my life, I don't know what to tell you. There is nothing more perverted and psychopathic.
Thanks for your video. It's incredibly important to give Ukrainians the voices. People like Hasan want to take it away. I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. I don't want to say he wants to take away the voices of Ukrainians. I don't think he wants to listen, but I don't think he wants to take away their voices. I could lean into it though. I could be like, and I thought about this and I thought it would be funny, but I decided against it. I could just come up here and be like, Hasan, the cis male streamer, wealthy, upper class, living in the United States, wants to speak over the colonized people of Ukraine. Like, I don't have any interest in grandstanding today. I have zero interest in grandstanding today. So all I'm gonna do is I'm going to play Hasan's response to the video. I'll respond to it. There's not much to respond to. This shouldn't take too long. So for those of you who don't know what's going on, I released earlier today in the AM, about 11 hours ago, this interviews with 4 Ukrainians. The video of the title is called Ukrainians Respond to HasanAbi. And in the video, I ask these 4 Ukrainians their opinions of different things said by Twitch's #1 political streamer, #1 political commentator, HasanAbi, about the war. HasanAbi has said many things about the war from before it started a few weeks beforehand, all the way up till today. And a lot of those things have been critiqued by Ukrainian content creators that I know, by Ukrainians that I know, and I have had Hasan's name come up in casual conversation with Ukrainians that I know in the country, and not in a positive light. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about that interview that Hasan did with, I think it was GQ? You guys know the interview I'm talking about. In that interview, if those of you who don't know, he says that he loves critique, takes critique very well. He likes it. He likes to be, critiqued, because he's challenging himself as a content creator. And considering that I was having Hasan's name come up to me multiple times in conversations off camera from Ukrainians complaining about things that he said, I thought, you know what? I think it would make sense to sit down and have Ukrainians add their takes to the conversations that Hasan is having, which I think could benefit from a Ukrainian perspective. For example, and I didn't even do this clip in the video, I talked about it during the intro, which you can see on screen right now. When Hasan was talking about right sector snipers killing Euromaidan protesters, that is something where if there was a Ukrainian in the room, that conversation would have gone very differently. If there was Euromaidan protesters in the room, which I think 2 of the people I interviewed for that interview were former Euromaidan protesters. I know Anna was. I interviewed her about it. I think the conversation would have went very differently. I think when he said that the attack on the Kerch Bridge was a war crime, if you had not even a Ukrainian, but just like an international law scholar in the room with him, talking to him, then he probably would have talked about it a little differently. 1 second, I think I'm in a WhatsApp thing and it keeps messaging me. Anyway, I'll ignore it. Point is, I think that there was a lot of commentary from Hasan that could benefit from a Ukrainian perspective. Hasan has said before that he's fine with critique, he's okay with critique, and this kept coming up in personal conversations with Ukrainians. His content, his messages kept coming up. Why did it keep coming up? Well, he's the most popular Twitch streamer that covers politics on this platform. It makes sense that the things he would say would travel outside the borders of the continental United States and would also make its way to the countries that are being discussed. Okay, I'm sorry. I keep getting brought up in this WhatsApp conversation. I got to mute it. You know what they're talking about? They're talking about how terrible my video is and how awesome Hasan is. Anyway, where were we? Point is, I think it's valid for me to use my platform to give Ukrainians a platform to add their voice to the conversations that are being had on Twitch and being had on YouTube. I think that much of the frustration that I'm hearing from Ukrainians is derived from the fact that they often think in conversations in Western media, both mainstream and alternative, their perspectives are not included and people will talk on their behalf. Now, I'm not even saying Hasan does, but I'm saying that that's a problem generally in Western press. Not only in Western press, but in international press generally. This isn't only a problem with Ukraine. This is a problem in Myanmar when it comes to their civil war against the military junta. This is a problem when it comes to Gaza and Israel. This is a problem when it comes to any number of conflicts around the world, any number of wars around the world. And so I wanted to platform people who, in some instances, were displaced from their home, turned into refugees by the Russian invasion, have lost family members to the Russian invasion, and are being colonized currently by the Russian government. I thought it would be a good idea to give them a platform to speak instead of me doing a video where I'm like, hey guys, here's all the things that I disagree with Hasan. Number one, he's a doo-doo head. I didn't want to do that because I can complain about Hasan any day of the week I want if I really want to complain about Hasan. Any other Twitch streamer can complain about Hasan any other day of the week they want. But I think it's more valuable than me just repeating things that I've probably already said a million times, or you guys have heard me say a million times. Getting Ukrainians on the record about what they think about his commentary surrounding the war is important, not only for them being platformed and their voices being included, but also for the historical record. So that once this is all over, there can't be a statement of like, well, when this person said that, they didn't know that, you know, Ukrainians didn't appreciate that. And there can't be a claim to ignorance. There's a historical record. And so these are a few of the reasons as to why I did this video. You guys can go watch it on your own if you want. It's an hour and 38 minutes long. So it's a doozy. It's all time-stamped for different segments and different clips that Hasan has made. I didn't include every clip he's ever said because I didn't want to keep them all day. I have to give them some respect. And if I didn't include your favorite clips, I'm very sorry. If you want them to react to those clips, or if you want their commentary on it, maybe they'll give it to you. I know that most of these people have Twitters at the start. If you wanted to ask them more about their perspective surrounding the war, or if you just wanted to go follow them and support their content, or just them on Twitter and social media, you can do that. Anyway, moving on. I released this and Hasan responded to it on stream today. And I don't know exactly what I expected. I don't know exactly what I thought he would say. To be frank, I just thought he wouldn't respond to it. I thought he would just ignore it and move on. Because I thought, you know, it'd be the easiest thing to do. And it probably would be the smartest thing to do if he didn't want to have a, you know, a horse comes to water and actually drink moment. Instead of a horse, you take a horse to water, can't make him drink. In this case, he drinks. Instead of having that moment where he's like, actually, yeah, that thing I said about the right sector snipers was probably not true. Or, well, you know, the targeting of the Kerch Bridge wasn't a war crime. Or having one of those moments where he has to reflect on that on stream or off stream. I didn't expect that. And that's not what happened. Instead, this is the response we got.
For those of you who said, chat, has he responded to Dylan Burns' post, by the way, before getting clapped? If you think that I would entertain such a psychotic thing ever in my life, I don't know what to tell you. There is nothing more perverted and psychopathic than literally putting Ukrainian people in Ukraine that are being fucking bombed, okay, by an invading force that is unjustifiably occupying their country, making Ukrainians sit down and fucking watch my clips out of fucking context in a way that you have framed it, to have them go, oh, wow, how fucked up, fuck this guy. It is literally the most unimaginably insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It completely betrays how much you care about the conflict that you are covering.
That's true. I don't
on
care.
The ground. It's nasty as fuck.
Nasty. Psychopathic, unbelievable, nasty.
It's such a weird psychopathic thing to do.
Psychopathic, nasty, unthinkable. My God, I am the devil himself. Okay, so first things first, I didn't clip any of his stuff out of context. Now, if he wants to point to any clip that was specifically taken out of context in the video, I'd be happy to listen to it. I'd be happy to listen to him. I don't think he watched the video. I think what probably happened from his reaction that he's giving right now is that he saw the ad for it. He saw a 1-minute ad, then didn't watch the video, then jumped to a bunch of conclusions based off the ad, and is now going on this rant, throwing insults and hurling this and hurling that. I'd assume that he saw in the ad, which we can play, yeah, we can play it in a moment. Yeah, we might as well play it. That he saw this ad that I posted on Twitter, and he jumped to conclusions about what the video entailed or included or didn't include. Here's the ad that we released.
is 1,000. NATO is 1,000% an aggressor outside fucking force, okay? Russia is not. Russia annexing its own territory full of its own fucking people is not the same as NATO being like, we're gonna turn your country into a fucking base and put literal fucking military bases and rockets into your country.
Saying that Russia is grabbing their territories is a total bullshit. They are grabbing the territories of what, Soviet Union, the empire that collapsed.
Anyway, you saw what I clipped. So I think that he watched this, right? And he saw all these Ukrainians go on to Big Shock, criticize that take. And he is angry because he thinks that I presented it as if he supports Russia, supports the invasion. I am showing a clip, and I say this in the video, and I show this in the video, and I specifically pause the interview to explain this. I say in the video clearly, and I point this out to the people to make sure that they know, that the people I'm interviewing, that this is a clip from February 21st. 3 days before the Russians formally invaded Ukraine. It was the day where the Russians announced the annexation of Donetsk and Luhansk. That is what he's reacting to here. I give them that context in the video. I think he saw the ad, assumed I didn't give the context, and then just jumped to conclusions without even listening to these people's perspectives. He saw one clip and just assumed the whole video was just like some hit piece. I even multiple times clarified in the video, and I don't even know if it was my responsibility to do it, but I did it anyway because I think it's the right thing to do. I clarified multiple times in the video that he does not support the invasion. He does not support the Russian government. He believes they're too nationalistic. He believes they're too imperialist. He doesn't like them, and he doesn't like the invasion. I clarified that. Now, the people I was interviewing didn't really put much weight to it because of the other things that he said, and for what they said was him carrying Russian talking points, whether it be around the Kerch Bridge attack or the right sector snipers. But I included that context. I just think that he probably didn't watch the video, didn't want to listen to Ukrainians critique him for an hour and a half. It probably doesn't feel good to listen to people who are being bombed critique you for an hour and a half. And so instead, he just said I misclipped him or, misquoted him in some way. So if he wants to say that, he can, find a clip and say, here's the stuff that's out of context. Here's why it's out of context. He can do that if he wants, but I don't think he's going to put in that effort. I have no belief that he's going to put in that effort. As for the idea that it's psychopathic to go to Ukraine and interview Ukrainians about what Western commentators are saying about the war, when Ukrainians know that what Westerners believe about the war is going to help determine the future of their country, I don't think that's psychopathic to do. I don't think it's psychopathic to give Ukrainians a platform to critique Western commentary about the war. I don't think it's psychopathic.
A curd is a curd.
Oh.
Flemmy gave CO_of_Bavavna a tier 1 subscription. Was Hasan ever on Hippy Dippy? Did he ever interact with you? How come he has no idea about your modus operandi?
He's interacted with me a few times. I remember once I critiqued him for his takes on Taiwan because, again, he said in the GQ interview that he liked critique. I critiqued him in that interview. No, I didn't critique that interview, but I critiqued his position on Taiwan, and that got him to block me. And then he once called me like a ruthless neoliberal, and that's the only commentary I know that Hasan has made about me. But now I'm also a pervert, a psychopath, and all number of nasty, nasty things on top of a neoliberal, a ruthless neoliberal. I sound like one of the Koch brothers when Hasan is describing me. I sound like the person. I am the PR guy of Raytheon.com, man. Perverted, just evil in all ways. But anyway, I think that's probably what happened. We didn't misquote him. I don't think it's psychopathic to platform Ukrainians to critique Western commentary. And also, can I just say that these aren't children. I mean, these are grown adults. Every single person I interviewed is older than me. Every single person. These are grown adults who brought up you, at least one of them brought up you in private conversations before I even brought up this idea. And then when the idea was floated, they were all excited to do it. All of them. And if he wants to look on Twitter right now to what Anna or Topsen or Rick or any of the people who are involved in this interview are saying about how the interview was done or saying about how the interview looks, all of them seem to be pretty happy with the result. So don't pick up a sword and become a warrior for these Ukrainians like I'm taking advantage of them, like I'm manipulating all of these people who are grown adults who can speak for themselves, who have their own minds, have their own thoughts. Don't pretend that I'm using them as some spear to come after you for attention or clout or something. They wanted to be interviewed about this, and the ones that didn't bring it up to me beforehand, when asked about it, were very happy to do it. They're grown adults. They can decide for themselves. Let's not treat them like children. They might live in a war zone. That doesn't mean they're like, you know, they've got mental problems or something. They can make decisions. They can consent to an interview. Also, can I just quickly say, lastly, if you're Twitch's top political commentator and you're talking about a war where people are dying, you cannot be surprised when hundreds of thousands to millions of people listen to you when talking about that war. Not be surprised when people who are directly feeling the consequences of that war are going to critique your commentary if you slip up. You cannot be surprised. If I did this with Tucker Carlson, if I said, hey, look at these Tucker Carlson clips, what do you think? This guy was the #1 name in news on TV. What do you guys think of that? There would be no problem with this. There'd be no problem with it because everyone would say, that's a TV personality. That's Tucker Carlson. He has a big audience. He also has different politics than Hasan, and so that's probably another reason why he'd be probably okay with that. This is all perfectly fine because they're trying to counter that misinformation. But now that it's a Twitch streamer, oh, now it's unserious. He's a Twitch streamer. He's not, you know, a TV host. He's not Tucker Carlson. It's different. It isn't different. It isn't different because you still inform people on politics and have a very large audience. People make opinions about the war based on what they hear from his stream. So I think it would make sense that if this conversation is happening, Ukrainians be included.
Especially considering that I have time and time again, over and over again, repeated my position, okay, that it is completely unjustifiable to invade Ukraine. Russia is cruel for doing such an act.
Okay, again, I say this in the video. He didn't watch the video. In the video, I say to them, hey, he condemns the Russian invasion. He's against the Russian government. He does not support the invasion. I stopped the interview to make sure that the interviewees know that, because I want to make sure that they're not having a completely just like slanted view of them. If I hear them say something about Hasan that isn't true, or assume something about Hasan that I know isn't true, I push back against it in the interview. But I would say to Hasan, why do you think people would watch these clips about things that you said and then jump to those conclusions? Maybe it's because some of the talking points you repeated were Russian propaganda talking points, like the right sector snipers.
And that Ukrainians...
But again, I clarified that he is against the invasion. The reason those people are critiquing Hasan isn't because they think that he's pro-invasion, that he's in favor of Russia invading and capturing Kiev. The reason that they're critiquing Hasan is because they think he said things that are wrong about the war, misinformed about the war, or just they disagree with. That's why they're critiquing him, not because they believe that he's Vladimir Putin's right-hand man. But again, he would know that if he watched the interview. He didn't watch the interview. So again, he's jumping to conclusions, which he does all the time.
Of course, have a just cause for emancipation. Not only that, but I've also...
Dylan, you should have recorded that part and showed it. I did. It's in the video. If you go and you watch the video, in the video, I say on camera, it's recorded, that Hasan does not support the invasion. But he didn't watch the interview, so he just doesn't know that.
Raised money for Ukrainian refugees. This community has raised $300,000.
The thing is, this is how I definitely know he didn't watch the interview, because we also mentioned that. We also brought that up. We showed a clip of him saying that. And then I talked about it with them. And you want to know what they said about it? He said that the way he was using it in conversation, as he's doing it right now, by the way, and maybe this is the most aggressive I'll get on Hasan, he's doing it right now again, he's using the money he donated as a shield. That's what the Ukrainians said in the interview. And that's also what I believe. I believed it, and so I asked them, how do you think he's using that? And they said they think he's using it as a shield when he brought it up on the Ethan H3H3 podcast. And so what does he do again? He uses it as a shield again to respond to critiques that he's not even responding to. He's not responding to any of the critiques that they made. He's not talking about the Kerch Bridge attack. He's not talking about his commentary on Crimea. He's not talking about any of that whatsoever. He's responding to somebody that doesn't exist. He's swinging at shadows.
For Ukrainian refugees. It is so insane to do a...
I mean, can we really say that somebody who was displaced from Donetsk, right? It's insane to interview that Ukrainian refugee about what Western commentators say. Is that really that insane? I just can't wrap my mind around it.
Jubilee video on this, okay? Like, I don't know what to say. It basically...
He doesn't know what to say because he didn't watch it. That's why he doesn't know what to say, because he watched a 1-minute clip and then didn't bother watching the interview and then just started throwing aspersions at me.
It basically betrays the position that you have. Like, oh, I genuinely care about this. That's why I went out there, not because I'm like a fucking war tourist pervert.
I'm a pervert. Oh my God. I knew it would come out eventually. My perverted activities. I didn't know Hasan would be the one to unmask me. What is it really that hard? If you look at my channel, like if you look at my channel and the stuff I'm covering on my YouTube channel, my main channel, my views are down tremendously. This channel made from making like $2,000 to $3,000 a month to making like $100 to $200. And the reason why is because I do interviews that get like 5 to 10K views, right? Like with foreign legionnaires, with soldiers, and I highlight Russian war crimes and document them in the first person. I didn't come out here with these people in a boat trying to film the rescue operations in Kherson because I thought it'd make great stream content. I did it because I thought it was important to document. And then I ended up documenting Russian war crimes, which reported on not only here, it was reported on in German media. It was reported on, I know the Washington Post wanted the story, but I mean, if you don't pay for the footage, you're not going to get the footage, and they didn't want to pay for the footage. I don't know what to say. So is it just because I interviewed Ukrainians about Hasan's commentary, because I interviewed Ukrainians about what Western commentators are saying about the war, an interview he didn't watch, now he can make the conclusion that I'm a pervert, I'm a psychopath, and that I don't really care because my true intentions are just to come after Hasan. So Hasan, he's the real victim here. He's the real victim here. I mean, this was not done because I thought it would be like fun content. I did this because I wanted to cover the conditions that rescue workers face, considering it doesn't get much coverage in mainstream press. If you check out the mainstream press, they'll talk about soldiers. Corrupt, they'll talk about commanders. They'll interview people who, you know, do all sorts of things. But most of the time, the aid workers don't get much of a mention, even though they do die, and they die quite frequently. And that's how we ended up documenting the Russian army shelling and targeting aid workers trying to save civilians in Kherson. I didn't do this because it was fun. I did this because I believe that it needs to be documented. I believe that journalism is the first draft of history. And if we don't have a good draft, or we have a manipulated draft, we have a draft that doesn't show what actually happened, then we're going to have a poor foundation to build a historical record of how this war was fought and who did what war crimes were committed, and the motivations behind the people who fought in it and survived it and lived with this war and have to live with it for the rest of their lives. I did not come over to Ukraine to get shelled and bombed for a few $100s a month in clout. I haven't gained that much clout. In fact, I don't think I've gained any clout, really, if you check my pre-transition to after transition to this content from this. I would like one day to have a big channel covering war and conflict because I believe it's important. And I don't believe that the mainstream media should have a monopoly on war journalism. Anyway, Danny Blue Jeans, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. He can think I'm a pervert if he wants to. He can think I'm a war tourist if he wants to, but he doesn't know anything about me. He didn't watch the interview, and so his opinion on this matters not at all to me.
But I went out there because I care about these people. So what am I doing? I'm like fucking using this as an opportunity to be like, yeah, look how bad this guy is.
That's not what we're doing this. Hasan has a gigantic audience, and his words influence his audience. His words influence what people think about the war, who people vote for, and what they're going to answer to pollsters when politicians make decisions about whether they're going to continue to send aid or not continue to send aid, whether people are going to go volunteer to do stuff to help Ukraine or not volunteer to go do stuff to help Ukraine. His words have impact. Having Ukrainians who want to respond to his words, by the way, it's me. See, he just like he takes the autonomy away from Ukraine, he takes the autonomy away from the Ukrainians in this interview. It's me who like led them in as like Auntie Ethel or like some like gremlin or goblin or like some type of witch, and like I led them all into my candy house of an interview, and I convinced them, if you do this interview, the war will end and Ukraine will be saved, and then all poverty will, like, how did I convince these people to do this interview? How does that work? I go to them like, hey, I hate this guy Hasan, and so we're gonna do this interview because he's an asshole. And they're like, oh, you know what? Yes, that sounds like a great idea. It's not how it worked. They want to have an impact on what Westerners think about the war. They believe that your commentary was irresponsible. And so instead of responding to their critiques of his commentary, he's instead going to critique the fact that we're listening to them at all.
Like, what the fuck? Like,
he just does not take critique very well. You know how easy it would be to be like, yeah, man, I was ignorant about that right sector sniper thing. Yeah, the Kerch bridge attack probably isn't a war crime, but I disagree with these Ukrainians on this, this, and this. He could do that in like 3, 4, 5 minutes if he actually sat down and just watched the interview, right? And he doesn't even need to show the interview, so he could ignore the questions. He could ignore the questions that he doesn't like. He could ignore the questions that actually maybe even hold his feet to the fire if he wanted to. He could at least give some sort of response, but instead he just doesn't watch the interview. It just calls into question why Ukrainians would even want to talk about him. He's just a lowly Twitch streamer with no influence whatsoever.
Burns is an
when, you know, they have more important things to do, like getting bombed.
Man. Burns is an
immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man. Hasan has proved that today.
it's insane.
It's insane.
Burns is.
I'm a Ukrainian who's been watching you for several years, and you know, as soon as you start talking about Ukraine, I completely agree with them. I don't know what that means, but
Burns is
it follows October 18th, 2023.
Bankrupt man.
Anyway,
is it really just that hard to listen? I'm not even looking at the chat, okay? My brain can only take too much. I'm not even gonna bother looking at the chat.
Morally
corrupt, bankrupt man. Man, you guys are really gifting away. I really appreciate it. Like, look at this commentary from the chat. They think you have a lot of power. I don't get it, question mark. There's not even a moment to just like, oh, let's go watch the interview, see if it's at least worth it. See if the interview was worth it. Like, why would they critique you? Why would Ukrainians critique you? What? Hey, I thought leftists were all about listening to colonized people. I thought that leftists were all about listening to people who are victims of imperialism. That's what I thought. And so instead, now it's a beef between me and Hasan, and when it should be a conversation between Ukrainians and Hasan about the type of commentary that he puts out. Very harsh critique, the critique they gave, but I mean, you haven't been particularly receptive, so what are you going to expect from them?
anyway, aren't there more Christian Zionists than Jewish people, full stop? Or
Okay, anyway, it's a very, honestly, it's a really sad response from Hasan. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Hasan has been giving pretty bad takes about the war since the beginning, misinformed takes, and sometimes just spreading just straight up misinformation about the war since the very beginning. These critiques are probably not going to end with this video and Ukrainians critiquing him. If you look at the reply to the post that I made talking about the video, you can look at all the Ukrainians in the replies who are talking about like, hey, I appreciate these Ukrainians being platformed, or hey, I agreed with this Ukrainian on this, or I agree with this Ukrainian on that. It's not just me going out there hunting for Ukrainians to go start a beef with a streamer I don't like. It's Ukrainians who in one instance at least came to me and started talking about Hasan. Then I said, is this something that you would want to talk about? And they said yes. And then we got some other people, and then we did an interview. It's not that I'm out here hunting for Dunkaroos. It's that Hasan has messed up so much, and his videos have been shared so widely because he has so much influence, even though I think he might want to disregard that influence. He has so much influence that people outside his country, including the countries he talks about, hear his takes. So they wanted to respond. And if you believe that I'm just hunting, then all I have to say is look at the replies to the video I actually posted. Look at all the Ukrainians, including Ukrainian soldiers currently in service, that are responding to the channel, to the video on my channel, saying, man, I really disagree with Hasan on this. Man, I really disagree with Hasan on that. Hey, I really appreciated what Anna said here. Man, I really appreciate what Anna said there. It seems that the Ukrainians don't have a problem with it. So don't get angry on their behalf for no reason like I use them. It's not that I went hunting. It's that there are just a lot of Ukrainians that don't agree with you. And that's something you have to accept. That the people who are being colonized in this war think that your commentary has not been muy bueno. Not all of them, but a lot of them.